الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope everyone is well. Jazakumullah khairan for joining our third and final part of our behavior management training. For those who were not present in our previous two parts that took place the last two Sundays, you can watch it on our YouTube channel, which is Khayr Academy. Without further ado, I will pass you over to our instructor, Maulana Sadique, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. Qala Allah tabarak wa ta'ala Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaqal insana min 'alaq. Wa qala an-nabiy sallallahu alayhi wa sallam khayrukum man ta'allama al-Qur'ana wa 'allamahu. أو كما قال النبي محمد المصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم. Respected brothers, sisters, ulama kiram, asatidha kiram, alhamdulillah, after praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sending salutations upon his beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and quoting a verse of the Qur'an and a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam as a barakah and as for basing our discussion, etc. Inshallah, today we will resume with the class management, etc., following from the last previous two sessions we had. So today, inshallah, we're going to go straight into discussing and dealing with the actual, tips and guidelines, ideas, etc., in helping manage the class, practically looking at a few different scenario situations, etc., followed by question and answers at the end, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to think about all the circumstances and scenarios, etc., as every individual comes across various different scenarios, different situations, circumstances are different, and it's very difficult to cover all the scenarios, situations, etc. So just for a basic guideline, overall understanding, we're going to go through a few situations and discuss a few tips, guidelines, guidances, etc., which will help you control the class. And at the end, inshallah, we'll have some question answers. So if anybody has any concerns, questions about any particular specific situation, scenario, then we can look at that as well. And from that experience, myself and everybody else could learn from one another. So for overall class management, like I mentioned yesterday, one of the, not yesterday, I mean last week, the key quality needed is leadership. Leadership, being an alpha. Just like if we look at the animal kingdom in nature, there's always that key alpha, that leader of the pack, of the pride, of the, whatever it is, which, who everybody looks up to, leads the way, sort of thing. So you must, as a teacher, as we discussed in the first lesson, the concept of a teacher has many aspects. One of the teacher is a leader. A teacher is a leader, and a teacher is a mentor. Teacher is advisor, a guider, etc. Just the word ustad, for example, it's there. Obviously, we didn't cover that. Itself actually means a king. So ustad is like a king, and he should be respected and obeyed and honored like a king. And we see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, although not being like the contemporary normal king that anybody would think of, sitting on a throne, having his palace and all that stuff. Yet, right from the beginning of Islam, when he didn't have a state, when he didn't have authority, an army whatsoever, there were a small minority, every single one of them, including the Prophet ﷺ, his companions were being, oppressed and abused, etc., by the Quraysh. Yet, from that time onwards, the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een respected him so much. And they treated him with more respect, more authority, more honor than any kings in the world have ever experienced or benefited from. And what was the reason for that? He wasn't a king at that time. He didn't have an army, etc. It's because, first of all, he's the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of love. And a messenger is one who teaches them about deen. And the ulama kiram, they are the inheritors of the anbiya. إنما الأنبياء لم يورثوا دينارا ولا درهما وإنما ورثوا العلم فمن أخذه أخذ بحظ وافر. The Anbiya, they don't leave behind any physical wealth. They only leave behind wealth, knowledge, and whoever obtains that knowledge has obtained a great share of that inheritance. إنما العلماء ورثة الأنبياء, etc. So the Anbiya, they teach deen. And because of that relationship, the Sahaba Ridwanullahi alayhim ajma'een, even though the Prophet ﷺ, didn't have a normal monarch, a kingdom, etc., like in the normal common sense, yet they respected him more than any king ever gets respected. And that is because he was their teacher. He was a spiritual mentor. He was the Prophet of Allah, and the Prophets are teachers. So this is why Ustad is called a Ustad. It's a Persian word, which means war, Taj, war sataj. Originally it was war sataj, meaning war, tajwala, tajwala. Ustad means tajwala, which, like with feel. فَعَلَى رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. Feel is peel, Persian word, but it's been, Arabicized sort of thing. A lot of, Ajami words are in Arabic, which later turn into Arabic. So Ustad originally is a Persian word, means the Tajwala, the king. And later it's been used as a Ustad because Ustad is like a king. So it's, first of all, getting that respect, having that leadership, building your presence, building your reputation, respect, confidence amongst the students. And overall, what is meant by class control, main objective is to keep the class focused, keep the students attentive, engaged, without any distraction, without any hazards and things like that. So in order now, we're going to go into a few specific ideas, tips, situations, how to obtain that, how to maintain that. Okay, so moving on to like general class management. If we turn to slide number 16, slide number 16, yeah, first of all, maintaining the study environment. That should be one of the key goals. Maintaining a study environment, shouldn't be too quiet, otherwise it puts everyone asleep and just gets you bored. It's not the ideal. For a short period, yes, if they're doing an exam, if they're doing some, answering some questions, whatever, fair enough. But throughout the lesson, every day, all year round, kids are gonna come out depressed end of the term. So neither should be too quiet, and of course you shouldn't be where everybody's partying around, jumping around and running around, all that stuff, doing whatever they want. That's another extreme. But teacher should have the full control, like a remote control, right? Everybody quiet, All right, quiet. All right, everybody listen to my joke. Everyone should laugh. Why are you not laughing? You should be laughing now, so get them to laugh as well. And all right, joke's over, guys. Move on. You got 5 seconds. It should be like that confident kind of approach. The students should know as well, this teacher is the boss, he knows or she knows what she's doing, and you're not gonna take them for a ride, that easy sort of thing. So maintaining that class environment. So in order to do that, first of all, it's the civilians, keep an eye out on all the students. So first and foremost, the students should become conscious and aware of the teacher is watching, as a deterrent, basically. Obviously, and in terms of what would happen if we mess around, if we're not doing our work. In order to maintain that, we've already discussed that basic principles of everything is reward and punishment. The fundamental and basic principle in life of getting people to do things or preventing them from doing things is the concept of reward and punishment, and you need to have both balanced. If there's no punishment, then again, it doesn't work so practically. And if there's no reward, then again, it doesn't work practically. People just end up losing hope. People end up becoming careless, rebellious, and it doesn't work. So there needs to be both sides. So those who are normally, focused, decent, hardworking, sensible, they need that push. For them, reward is most practical, most beneficial, right? Just like somebody who's not engrossed in kabira and things like that, they're not engrossed in sins. So for them to pray tahajjud, for them to do some tilawah of the Qur'an, it's all going to be reward motivated, for reward. Because they're not doing kabira and all that stuff. So talking to them about the punishment of lying, of interest, of alcohol, and all the severe punishment, etc., is not so necessary. On the other hand, a person who's engrossed in sins and he knows that he's rebellious, he's careless, he's doing kabair, etc., for him, reward is not the question. His concern is, I know I'm doing bad, so how do I stop from that? And why do I need to stop from this evil? Because otherwise you're in big trouble, you're in danger, so this is why, illa bashiran wa nadhira, bashiran wa nadhira, both together. So for obviously those who are misbehaving, etc., for them, they're normally more conscious of the punishments. And they weigh out, they see whether this messing around is worth the punishment or not. If they think the punishment is just gonna be like, okay, 1 minute staying back or something or whatever, then nah, I'd rather stay that 1 minute and spend 2 hours of just having a laugh, taking the teachers for a ride, and well, nothing more than that, big deal. So this is why, based on the individual students, etc., the punishment needs to be as severe. And in extreme case scenario, they should know. Just like, in any country, you have a life sentence. That's the extreme situation. And everybody knows if you're going to do such a big crime, you are going to get life sentence. And the court is capable of giving you a life sentence of whatever the severest punishment is. So in an educational setting, obviously, you're not going to give life sentence. Your most severe punishment is going to be expulsion, technically, that's the worst you can do. That's more like, like life sentence. And they should know he is going to come to that. There's no compromise. If you do any wrong, which will lead to that, that's what's going to happen, regardless of who you are. And, just like with hudud and qisas, Prophet ﷺ said, "Law anna Fatima bint Muhammad saraqat laqata'tu yadaha." Even if it was Fatima radiallahu anha committing any crime, breaking any hudud, etc., then it will be implemented on her as well. And nobody should feel and think ever that they will be an exception. So it's the deterrent, the students knowing that there is reward for doing good, there is punishment, and the teacher is watching. Any minute is going to catch us, sort of thing. So therefore, I'm going to either miss my reward or I'm going to gain my punishment, and it's always going to be one of the other. So for every, so this is why you should, as teachers, should implement that. For every little good they do, give them some reward, give them a lot of praise. The praising doesn't cost money. For any little good they do, give them a praise. Yeah, and of course, it needs to be balanced as well at the same time. So in that way, they know that you're not just, just saying it for the sake of it, just for sweet talking them. They actually know that I did do good. It is the right thing. And then it really actually works as their motivation, as encouragement. And, when they know that, you're just only saying it for the sake of it or whatever, and you say it to everyone regardless, then it doesn't have the same value and same weight, to be honest, because I clearly remember as well at school days as well, do anything and then you still expect the teacher to say, yeah, well done. If the teacher didn't say, when I was like, no, miss, it's not fair. You said well done to him and this and that, and would moan, and the teacher, all right, well done, thank you very much. And, they're giving in. And the kids, they like to, test the water, test the teachers, how much they can take them for a ride and stuff like that. So that should be balanced. And just like, with the police, with the army and all that stuff, they don't always see what's going on, but general public, they're always conscious, like, okay, any minute cops gonna stop me. They might just drive past. It's a deterrent sort of thing. So in that sense, the students should have that sort of conscience that teachers watching, right? Students should never, ever think or even talk amongst themselves, what, the teacher's always looking down, just when he's reading, he's listening to other students, he's only looking at the book, or when he's teaching something from the board, then he's just too obsessed with the board. So therefore, that's your chance, guys. Throw whatever you want to throw, aeroplane, and poke someone. They should not be able to think like that. And then secondly, students speaking out, strictly this needs to be maintained. As soon as one student shouts out, speaks out, then another one will speak out. And, this is just going to end up causing so much distraction. So even with the teacher as well, they should raise their hand. And sometimes they will raise their hand and they still will say, miss, sir, and that should be prevented. If someone does that, say, right, okay, you spoke out, I'm not going to listen to you, I'm not going to give you a chance. Go to the next student who was quietly sitting there like this. And especially amongst themselves, shouting out, speaking out should not be tolerated. Like I said previously as well, until you get full control of the class, students are cooperating, behaving, they are hardworking, so that they get the reward, they get the results and all the other advantages and benefits that one gets in dunya and akhirah, pleasing Allah, pleasing the parents, pleasing the teachers, and all that stuff. And the constant reminder, motivation, etc., needs to be given all the time. So they're constantly studying and stuff like that. So at that time, no student should be shouting out, speaking out with one another. If anybody does, then you need to stop the class. Stop the class if worst case scenario, and give them little exercises, right? Or let them miss break, or if there's any fun activity that they're supposed to do, don't do that until if you see that even that's not working, because you all of a sudden you're a new teacher, you come to a new place, and this place has been a circus all these years, and now you're the new cop in town, whatever, you have to come and try and clean things. Obviously it will happen slowly, but you need to be continuous, you need to be consistent, and slowly see gradual improvement. And if you see in class time it's not working, then you need to do it at break time, make them miss break, so that will actually make them think, make them realize. And if you see that still that's not working as well, then at home time, keep them a little bit longer, if need be 5-10 minutes, tell the parents in advance if need be, sort of thing. If either is not working, try to do both. But yeah, keep at it, basically, keep at it. And you have to give it some priority. And at the beginning, like I said, until you get full control, you're going to have to compromise some learning for a day or a couple of days if need be, especially, or a couple of hours a day, or depending on how many hours lesson you have a day, sort of thing. But you must be willing to compromise some learning to get them in control, so that in the long term you're not wasting hours and hours, and not just actually wasting hours. Sometimes yes, you might have full intensive lecturing, teaching, you're covering so many things, but because of not having good class control, either because it's too boring, too quiet, students are not talking, but they're just daydreaming, they're just sleeping or whatever, that is also comes under class management, class control. They're not learning anything. So really, you are wasting a whole term, sometimes a whole year sometimes, because everybody's literally sleeping. And on the other hand, if they're talking, then that's absolutely obvious and common. Anybody will notice that. Yeah, dealing with some persistent students, you will always get that handful of students, they always like to be stubborn, they always like to be persistent, and you tell them, all right, no break for you. No, miss, but miss, yes, sir, but sir, no, please, and this and that, please listen to me, and all that stuff. They're just gonna, if you welcome that, if you entertain that, then they're just gonna carry on. And that will also inspire others to behave in the same way, because it gives them that attention. End of the day, that's some of the students, that's all they want. They're attention seekers. They love attention. Yeah, that's what. And some of them are too overconfident. So you need to deal with students based on the level. If they are too overconfident, whether in class, they don't know the answer yet, they just like to come at the front and they're like, I forgot, and say a funny joke, and they laugh, and everybody laugh, and they're so proud of themselves. Yeah, I made the class laugh. And some kids are like that. They're just too confident. Anything going out to the park, they're too confident, they run onto the road and things like that. So these, you need to, bring them to the level, make them come down. If you need to tell them off, if you need to, tell them off in front of the class as well, within some limits and balance, like I said, like, okay, you're talking too much. It's always you, give somebody else a chance. Like one more word from you, things like that. Or you say it to them, you don't know the answer, you don't even know it yet, you just want to come and make everybody laugh. This is not acceptable. Things like that. Raise your voice if need be. So those who are too overconfident, try to bring them a little bit onto level, basically. Too much of anything isn't good enough. Simple as that. Likewise, if someone is too lack of confidence, then these ones, you need to encourage them. If they're gentle, if they're soft, just telling them, why do you do this? They're going to start crying. You need to take it easy on them. With them, try to be as gentle as possible and, understand the situation, basically. Yeah. And sometimes, of course, it doesn't matter how gentle you are. You'll have those handful of students as well. This is their trick. Always crying is the trick. Or excuse me, I got a headache, I got bellyache, is the trick. They do that at home, they do that with whichever of their parents or the grandparents it works with, and they will try to do it in class as well. So yeah, sometimes, okay, if you just tell them, okay, now, sorry, you can't pass this, then they're gonna start crying. That you must be willing to tolerate. All right, you know what? You can go there and sit and cry, but I'm not gonna take that every single day, and it's not gonna be accepted every single day. You don't know yourself. I can't just let you pass, or just because you're gonna cry. then simply learn it. Or, like this, you must be willing to basically adjust and understand the situation. And yeah, basically. So again, deal with each students individually. So you will get those few students who are very persistent, etc. So those you don't give them the attention. They will sometimes you lost them. All right, you go sit in the timeout. After 5 minutes, they're gonna go, sir, can I come back in, please, 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 or stuff like that, and they're doing that every day. And if you just give it all the time, then that becomes like a joke to them as well. So if they're out, if you say you're gonna stay there 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you're gonna stay there throughout the whole break, you stick to that. Maybe once, twice, again, to show that compassion, show that love. Now, look, I did tell you you're going to stay there 15 minutes, but because, I care for you and I'm kind or whatever, I'm going to let you go after 5 minutes. But considering that 5 minutes, you can prove to me. So it works as a sort of encouragement, sort of motivation and stuff like that, basically. But nevertheless, the teacher should use this kind of wisdom, hikmah, taking advantage of every situation and using that to somehow motivate them, somehow encouraging them, to deter them from misbehavior and things like that. So yeah, so you'll get those handful of persistent student who will just carry on being stubborn and come in and disturbing and all that stuff. Even when you send them out of the class, they will still try to come in and take advantage of the situation. And like I said, normally, these steps that I'm mentioning now, 80–90% of the time, you have the approach, you keep that sort of balance, it automatically sorts out, good 70–80% of the situation, right? And then, if you get that one-off extreme case scenario, even after having all these things in place, having that little balance, your approach, your appearance in class, your, presence, your influence, your leadership and all that stuff, your confidence, you've worked on all those areas, you've got the reward and punishment system in place, still you're getting that one child sort of thing, then you need to class them, flag them, refer them and deal with them more, specifically with more specialized, special attention sort of thing, get the management involved, get the parents involved, and you need to deal with that. And these things should not be left ignored and neglected, basically. And no, a lot of the times these things are not being dealt with is because you've got a whole class with similar behavior. So who do you actually refer to? Who do you actually deal with? And that's only happening is because of that one or two students who have actual issues. They're not being dealt with special attention, with special measures, whatever needs to be done. And that's having a knock-on effect on everybody. And then it just becomes the norm. You don't know who is the actually problematic one, who's not the problematic one, who has these habits and who doesn't. And kids, they end of the day go with the flow. Even the good ones, they will try to, if that becomes the norm, you know how it is, depending on the society that you're living in. If you're living in a gangster paradise kind of society, then even the son of the alim ends up becomes a zalim and he wants to become a gangster. He's, whatever. And that's how it is. It's the environment has a huge effect on everyone. So, I'm talking from experience. I mean, as childhood, primary school, early secondary school, growing up in East London and all that stuff, where, it was a lifestyle of this kind of, antisocial behavior and all that stuff. And you couldn't tell who's the son of an alim, who's the son of a zalim, who's the son of what, and this and that. And everybody's there together. And it's just the society is, pushing. But eventually, as children grow up and all that stuff, many times, their roots pull them back. Whatever the roots, like they say, the fruit does not fall far from the roots. So eventually, it will pull you back, sort of thing. Arguing with teachers. Some students. Yeah. Again, in class, they like to argue when you tell them you're the one who spoke, or I saw you poking him, or saw you doing this sort of thing, and they just gonna want to argue every little thing. During class time, strictly should not give anybody a chance to argue, right? If you have some doubt, okay, actually, might have not been him or her, then, best thing you could do is just say, ignore, all right, let's forget it. Don't do that again. Don't talk again, or don't, push him or pinch him or poke him or whatever the annoyance and disturbance was. You just ignore it. But if you're sure that this child did something wrong, whatever, and you're telling them, right, no break for you today, or okay, all right, you're gonna have to stand up, or timeout, or whatever it is, right? And they're like, no, sir, but no, I didn't do this, and they're going on. They're just like, should not take it, right? Okay, I'm not going to listen to it. If you've got anything else to say, we'll talk about it after class. And the more you argue, right, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, increase it. And they're like, so don't entertain it. As soon as you entertain these kind of arguments, it's going to end up, wasting time. And this student's going to have the opportunity. It's going to motivate, encourage others to behave in a similar way. Teachers going to lose that respect. Teachers going to lose their authority, that command, influence, all that stuff, basically, the position, presence. And like I said, even the good ones will just try it out. And again, you're not going to have control, and you're not going to enjoy yourself, because you just know, okay, if I'm going to have a little fun activity with them, man, another headache for me to get them out of their seats and get them in pairs, get them in groups. It's going to take them another 15 minutes. They're going to run around, they're going to shout. Forget it, I'm not going to even do that. And if you do end up doing it, then for you to get them back into class, you get what I mean? So it causes a lot of disruption, and in the long run, it prevents you from even having the confidence of diversifying the class activities and being creative, being interactive, engaging, fun, and all that stuff, which you need to try and maintain. Leaving without permission, yeah, we all know that students should not be allowed to get into this habit of let alone leaving the class, they shouldn't be allowed to even leave their seat, their place, without permission of the teacher, unless it's a casual day where you're doing some kind of group activities and sort of thing, which requires you to move around from one place to another place, etc., sort of thing. Then it's a different issue. But where you're actually doing some work, etc., they shouldn't be technically having that freedom to just move around where how they want, sort of thing. There needs to be that kind of monitoring and supervision in that sense. And potential disorder, yeah. So just like with driving and all that stuff, you have to, has hazard perception. Just like with driving, you have to have a very good hazard perception, meaning anticipate. This would potentially lead to an accident, lead to problem, lead to chaos, etc. So the teacher always needs to be aware of any potential disorder, chaos, disruption, etc. So if the teacher, so this is what the teacher always needs to be alert. That is extremely important. Whether when you're doing Islamic studies or some kind of class discussion, then of course you're going to be facing all the students, all the time, unless you're using a board or something like that. So even when you're using a board, you must make sure after every couple of minutes you turn your head around. You're interacting with them. You're seeing that they're writing, or they're listening, or they're watching, and you make sure they are focusing. And if it's talking, then of course, your eyes there. If you see someone misbehaving, they're whispering, they're talking, normally at that time, if you just stop and you look at them for a little while, they're just going to feel a bit embarrassed, and they're going to stop. So you wouldn't need to really tell anybody off or anything like that. And sometimes you don't need to even stop. normally, ideally, it would be just like, even while you're talking, you're just keeping an eye on them. And if they already know you've already got that presence, they got that respect, then automatically another looking, and they will stop. But if you don't have that, then of course, whether you look at them, whether you give them, stare at them, whether you call the name out, it's just going to be fun for them, and everything's going to be funny. So normally when you're doing Islamic studies, if you see, initially just give an eye, look at them, they should be able to stop. And because unless you deal with it straight away, depending on how severe it is, if it's something a little bit, then obviously try not to interrupt the class. But if you don't, you totally neglect it, then that little whisper is going to end up becoming from mutual. First, one child whispering something, then he's the other one going to whisper back, and then seeing him, next person, and the whisper ends up becoming loud, and then you're not going to be able to hear what you're talking about. So this is why you must always be conscious and aware, observing any potential disruption, distraction, etc., and deal with it straight away. Like I said, initially start off with just looking, just eye. If that doesn't work, then you stop for a second, and of course, they're gonna know why has teacher stopped. If that doesn't work, then call the name out, Usman. Sorry, they're gonna carry on focusing. Second, all right, I've told you twice. Once more, there, sort of thing, and they should already know. And everybody else, mashallah, everybody's been behaved so well. All right, we're gonna have 2 minutes longer break today, or we're gonna let everybody pack up 2 minutes earlier, or whatever, whatever your reward system is, and try to have a range of different types of reward as much as possible. Whether it's a star, whether it's just praising them, right? End of the lesson, have a little recap. All right, today, mashallah, so-and-so behaved so well. Today, so-and-so has improved so much. Congratulations. Here, take a little star. If you don't have a star, if you don't have any kind of any other rewards, sweets, or whatever it is, then قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ يَتْبَعُهَا أَذًى. Then the least anybody can do is verbal appreciation, verbal reward. Like, the hadith, if someone hal jazaa'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan, and someone does good to you, then you return it with another good. If you cannot do that, then say jazakallahu khairan ahsan al-jazaa. Then that's repaying them. So in the same way, praise them at least, but yeah, so when you call the name out, most of the time, 90% of the time, they will stop, considering you've got all the other aspects in place. If it doesn't, then you need to say, right, Usman, you need to get out of the class. I'll talk to you after the class, after school or after class. And normally talking and stuff like that on a one-to-one basis, you should do, at break time, after class, etc. And of course, like as mentioned previously as well, whether it's praising them, whether giving them rewards, showing some kind of kindness. If you give them reward, just a general treat to the class. Don't ever choose pets, your favorites, and always giving it to them. It's going to make everybody else lose their morale, their encouragement. It's going to raise questions and doubts and all sorts of other assumptions and allegations. And you need to avoid all those things, and it's not right. In the same way, when talking to the students as well, talk to them, ideally when other students, there 1 or 2 students are still left, or other staffs are there, or at least make sure the doors are wide open, and so that you're not ever, and nobody can, raise any questions, any accusations, especially if it's a regular student who you're having to, keep back on a regular basis, quite often, sort of thing. Then, obviously, again, this same punishment shouldn't be repeated so often anyway. If you're going to have to call back a student, 3 times a week, sort of thing, that's a bit too much. You need to move it on to a next level now. You've spoken to them, give them some lines. If that doesn't work, refer them to the head teacher, speak to the parents. Yeah, 3 is, if after 3 times it's too many times, basically, then yeah, you shouldn't even come to that stage where you're having to do something, same things repeating too many times. Yeah, but nevertheless, my point is basically when you're talking to students, etc., after class, etc., ideally try to make sure there's other colleagues, other teachers around, or other students are around, or the doors are open and all that stuff. So try to always keep your distance, keep your like somebody asked, how do you show love and things like that? Obviously, definitely you don't show with any kind of physical, with a little hug, a little cuddle, and these kind of things that have the way you will show your love and affection to your your baby, your children, etc. Don't even try to do that with the students. Don't even try to avoid any physical contact whatsoever, unless the circumstance requires it, like where someone's falling down, someone hurt themselves, or is about to fall, you're holding them, or things like that, unless there's a necessity. Otherwise, avoid all things that could lead to any other questions and stuff like that. Basically, be very careful in these aspects. Yeah, so understanding the circumstances, right? So ultimately, yeah, you doesn't matter how much you do, you must understand the circumstance, right? Some students, obviously, they've had these kind of habit for many years, previous teachers, etc. You're not gonna implement that standard straight away. So you must take a little bit slower, yeah, it's as simple as that. Just because in your other place things were tip top sort of thing, and now you come to this new place or whatever, and it's not, don't think you can ever change anything overnight. If you try to do that too much, you're going to break them. The next day they're going to go, we don't like this new teacher. Half the students are going to go, and it's just going to have a knock-on effect and all that stuff, sort of thing. So understand the situation. If you see the students are not focusing, they're either talking too much, or they're just not reading, they're just not paying attention, and you're just allowing them because you think they're tired, then let them have a break. Be in control. If you see that they are bending the rule, taking advantage because of whatever valid reasons, then you should understand this reason. They are tired. They are, they've actually worked very hard today. Everybody's behaving so well. So they deserve a little chill, a little freshening up. So give them 5 minutes, or everybody get up, come on, let's do some stretches, what that thing, I don't know that song that they used to sing at school days. I forgot it was Finger Tinga or whatever, he goes, stuff like that, basically. All right, stretch your arms, everybody, sort of thing. Depending on your facilities, if you got space there, right, okay, I'll give everybody a little 5 minutes break or whatever. Understand the situation. And yeah, that's one of the key features, basically, and qualities that is needed. And then you've got those aggressive students as well. Some will have attitude, some will be aggressive towards other students, some will be aggressive towards the teacher. And like I mentioned before as well, if they're young kids, then nothing should be taken personally at all. Kids are kids, sort of thing. And they will behave in so many different ways and stuff like that. Even if the teacher, child, student, young kid, swears back at the teacher or whatever, yes, you deal with it. You say, how dare you say that, right? Get out of the class, this is not acceptable, whatever. But back in your head, you should think like, okay, the kid is a kid, it's not his fault, and whatever it's upbringing, circumstances, whatever sort of thing. Or a lot of times it will be students have emotional difficulties, mental difficulties which have not been diagnosed yet, sort of thing, and these things are showing up and nobody's actually paid attention to that. Yes, once they're older, by that time, these things get diagnosed and identified, and you get person sectioned, whatever, under mental this and that and whatever other things. But at childhood, that's the time where you are identifying these things. So definitely, teacher must never react. That's the objective, basically. If a student is, sometimes you suddenly will just suddenly react. Like I said, so if they're emotional, they will just over petty little things. All right, can you go learn that again, please? And start crying. What? What have I done? And some will suddenly flip. You tell them, right, you're in detention today. You always tell me you're always me and this and that. I hate you so much. And they're going to cry. So you don't basically react with the students. You stay calm. You take it easy. And if the child is reacting, you don't say no. At that time, just let him say whatever he wants to say. Let him cry. Let him shout. Let him do whatever. Unless obviously, if somebody else is at any risk and he's onto another extreme level, then of course you will need to do whatever needs to be done. You will need to hold him, take him out the class or whatever, get him under control. That's a different scenario. But if it's just a verbal, he just got emotional and he just, I hate you and this and that, you don't react and say, well, how dare you hate me and this and that. You just ignore it, leave it, let him calm down, sort of thing, just take it with a bit of pinch of salt or whatever they call it, And once it's calmed down, try to balance it, try to show that it's not personal. If you need to say sorry, just say sorry, you know what, it was my mistake or whatever. If genuinely the teacher should be willing to accept sometimes mistake, okay, maybe it wasn't his fault and whatever, and that's why he did get emotional, sort of thing. Like this, you need to deal with aggressive students with emotional problems and stuff like that in the suitable manner, basically. So the teacher must, always try to implement the etiquettes of the class, the protocols and stuff like that, the guidelines, whatever, that you should have a set protocol in the class. Okay, when you come in, everyone's going to sit in their places first. So they're going to do some, individual reading. If it's meant to be, they have to line up first, then they will line up. If it's the protocol is they're going to come and sit in the assembly first, then you sit in the assembly. If the protocol is, you will first go and put your bags away, your jackets away, you get the benches, always try to remind them of the basic timetable, basic guidelines, protocols, and all that stuff. Always, okay, remind them and try to implement that. And also the seating order and all that stuff. If you see students are misbehaving, distracting, talking, then if it's because of who they're sitting with, then also take that into consideration. And I think this is student engagement. That will be the last section. Teaching technique and all that. That's another topic. The teaching hifdh class, all that stuff. I think maintaining high standard. Again, that will come under teaching methods and all that stuff. Disciplinary policy, that's one bit left, but in a nutshell, you must have some kind of disciplinary system. Just think of something. Obviously, the school, madrasa should already have that based on individual madrasa situation. Obviously, with these things, class control, back home, a lot of the teachers say, for you guys, it's easy, you guys got your imam sahab, you just pull the imam sahab and, everyone's going to be in control. And that's it. You don't need to worry about anything else. But in these countries, you can't even be too harsh. It's all about technique. It's all about wisdom. It's all about being creative, innovative, and stuff like that, basically. And obviously, you can't be too harsh with them. Any other forms of discipline, it's not option. Back home, they'll show the stick, and everybody's quiet and everything's under control. It's easy for them, right? But in this country, we can't do that. We shouldn't do that. And ideally, that shouldn't be the need, shouldn't be the situation. If there's that good relationship and all that stuff, then there's no need for that stuff. Back home, they normally resort to that is because, again, there's not training hasn't been given, sort of thing. So therefore, only thing they can resort to is that sort of thing a lot of the times. which is not necessary, and in these countries is not acceptable. So for us, it's all about using these techniques and approaches, creativity, etc. So yeah, all these things that I mentioned, unless you are able to keep the students engaged, busy, it's going to be very difficult, right? So if it's all day, just individual reading, it's not going to work. If it's every single day Islamic studies, just lecturing, is not going to work. You have to plan. This is why lesson plan is very important. And understand the situation. Try to do diversify the class activities. If it's about, for example, group reading, for example, you're rehearsing the du'as, you're rehearsing the surahs, rather than the same always them reading after the teacher, or always every day the same thing. Here's your book, go learn your dua, come back and say it to me. Always try to diversify it, you know, either on a different days or in the same day. First start off with individual reading, then they read after the teacher, then maybe everybody read together collectively in a nice tune, whether it's the duas, or then change the style, get one student to get up, read it to the students like that. If you're reading Islamic studies from any book, for example, then rather than the teacher always reading, let the students read, stuff like that basically. So yeah, you must always think of ways of keeping them engaged. For Qaida, Qur'an lesson, for example, you know, once students already learned their stuff, learned their sabak, now they, of course, they're gonna, you know, unless they're able to be motivated, they are gonna be bored. They're gonna start distracting other students. So either you like one person asked last week, what do you do? You know, either you give them extra stuff like that, increase their minimum sabak or their homework and all that stuff, and until that is done, or if that isn't done, then try to get them to help other students, sort of thing. You know, sort of, so keep them engaged like that. So inshallah, we'll just wrap it up here, and inshallah, if anybody's got any questions or anything like that, we'll try to discuss this today. جزاك الله خير وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakallah Mawlana Sadique for the informative training. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and those behind this training immensely. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. We will have a short Q&A. If anyone has any questions you want to ask, you can use the chat option, inshallah. If not, if you want to email us and we can ask Maulana later, you can email us on info@khayracademy.com and we can get back with you with the answer, inshallah. I don't think anyone has any questions for now. So we'll leave it till then, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair for attending, and of course, you know, giving us the opportunity to, you know, share something, and Allah forgive us for our shortcomings, mistakes, etc. And yeah, end of the day, this is, you know, certain things we're still learning as well. Nothing is perfect. And likewise, if anybody wants to give any feedback, any suggestions, by all means, you know, you can always email Al Khayr Academy or NUA Academy directly, and any feedback, suggestions, you know, we all need improvement. You know, I'm always learning. Everybody's always learning. Like I said, you know, you always need to try and keep up with the time, inshallah. So I say Jazakallah first of all again to Maulana for arranging it, and for all the other participants for participating and giving me the opportunity, inshallah. Khayr Maulana.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanakallah bihamdika subhanaka ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Alaikum
salam.